الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول حي على الصلاة حي على حي على الفلاح حي على الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل له فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. عن أنس بن مالك قال كنا جلوسا مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال يطلع عليكم الآن رجل من أهل الجنة فطلع رجل من أنصار. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. I'm beginning this khutbah with a narration from Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu. May Allah be pleased with him. He narrates to us about a story about Abdullah ibn Amr, another companion, radiallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with him. That the companions, and the hadith began that the companions were in the majalis of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet and his companions were gathered together, and they were doing the halaqah in Masjid Nabawi. They were teaching, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was teaching about fiqh, hadith, seerah, whatever it was, that they were doing a halaqah, he was teaching them. And suddenly, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam stops teaching. He stops. He altogether just stops teaching. And he says, يَطْلُعُ عَلَيْكُمْ الْآنْ رَجُلٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْجَنَّةِ. That coming to you right now is a man from Jannah. And he points towards the door. And he says, out of that door the man will come. And suddenly everyone stops. They all look at the door. They're waiting. Who's going to come from this door? Who is about to come here that has the title of a man of Jannah? And suddenly a man comes in. And this man comes in and his beard is dripping wet with water from making wudu. And he's holding his slippers, his chappals in his right hand, and he's going to the musalla to pray salah. And the companions observe this, they watch this, and they say, MashaAllah, tabarakallah, this is a man of Jannah. Then the next day comes, فَلَمَّا كَانَ الْغَدُ قَالَ نَبِيُّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ مِثْلَ ذَلِكَ. He says the exact same thing again. That coming to you is a man from Jannah. And everyone stops, they look at the door. Who is this man? Maybe it's a new person. But yet instead it was the same man from the day before. And he comes to the door, his beard again dripping with water. And his chappals are in his right hand, his right armpit. And he heads to the musalla and he prays to his salahs. Then the third day, exact same thing happens as you guys can imagine. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, coming to you from this door is a man of Jannah. And the same man appears, same scenario, same situation. So Abdullah bin Amr, who at the time was a very young Sahaba, he takes advantage of this moment. And he says, I'm not going to rest until I find out why did Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam proclaim this man to be a man of Jannah, not once, not twice, but 3 times in a row. He said, this is a man of Jannah. So Abdullah bin Amr followed this man home, and he concocted a little story for the man. He said, I'm in an argument with my father, and I have sworn not to enter my home for 3 days because of the dispute with my father. May I stay with you? And it was the Arabic tradition, Arabic custom, that when guests and visitors and travelers came to your house requesting accommodation, you gave them that accommodation. That if a brother came to your house asking you for help, you would give him that help for 3 days. So the man obviously immediately said, yes, you may stay here. So Abdullah bin Amr stayed with him. He crashed on his couch. He was there the whole day. And Abdullah bin Amr made it his goal that for the next 3 days, I'm going to watch this man like a hawk. Every time the man stood up for salah, he watched exactly what he did. Every time he ate food, he ate the same way. He watched exactly what he did. When he interacted with his wife, his kids, his spouse, his family, whatever it might be, he watched him exactly, bit by bit, piece by piece. He took notes on every single thing that this man did. And the 3 nights passed. And on the 4th day, Abdullah bin Amr comes clean. He breaks clean with the man. He says, he tells the man, Ya Abdullah, O servant of Allah, I have not been in an argument with my father. I made that up. And instead he tells him this story that Rasulullah said in 3 days, 3 times in a row, that you were a man of Jannah. What is it that you did that raised you to this status? And subhanAllah, Abdullah bin Amr is a bit brash, is a bit direct with the man. He says, I did not see you do anything special. I did not see you do extra sadaqah, extra charity, extra zakah, extra fasting, extra reading Quran, extra tahajjud. He tells the man directly to his face, I didn't see you do anything crazy, anything out of the ordinary, things that we might attribute to someone who's really, really great. He says, I didn't see you do many good deeds. So what did the Prophet ﷺ say? What did he mean when he conveyed this about you? And the man responds, فَقَالَ مَا هُوَ إِلَّا مَا رَأَيْتِ. I'm nothing except that whatever you saw me. I ate food, I prayed salah, I was good to my neighbors, good to my family. I'm just an average Muslim. So Abdullah bin Amr says, subhanAllah, I can't figure this out. He's walking away. He's kind of confused. What is it this man did? What did I miss? What did not observe properly with the man? And then the man calls him back, Ya Shabab, come back here. I know exactly what happened. He tells them, I do not allow myself to go to sleep at night having any anger, any hatred, any animosity, any problem, any beef, whatever word you want to choose, any type of hatred towards another Muslim. That every time I go to bed at night, I have nothing in my heart against any other human being. That I let all of it go and I sleep with a clean heart. فقال عبد الله هذا التي بلغت بك وهي التي لا نطيق. Abdullah bin Amr looks up and he says to him, that's it. This is the reason why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, you are a man of Jannah. And he said something very profound. He said, this is an action that most of us cannot do. And I asked all of you to reflect on this narration. I began the khutbah on this narration on the topic of forgiveness, on letting things go. Because this man, subhanAllah, is an average Muslim being. We don't know his name. Till today, we have no idea who this Sahaba is. And we can assume he's just an average Sahaba. He's not on the forefront of the battles. He's not of the Khalifa Rashidun. He's not someone who's extraordinary. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevated his status because it's a simple act. Of course, doing Quran is good. Of course, doing extra tahajjud is good. However, these are things that first thing that comes to mind are these things that we attribute to being great. But subhanAllah, forgiving one another, something as light and easy as letting things go, is an attribute we often overlook. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through this man, has exemplified that this is an attribute of Ahlul Jannah. And subhanAllah, I want to share on something personal that for the last year, We watched our brothers and sisters, my brothers and sisters, your brothers and sisters, your mothers, your fathers, our mothers, our fathers being genocided in Gaza, that they lost their siblings, their arms have been blowing apart, their limbs falling apart. And subhanAllah, when we see this happen, it should force us to realize that when this loss is so great, we must show gratitude what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. That how dare I walk among in my own safe, secure communities, walk around these communities with hatred and animosity for one another. That how dare I not allow myself every night to purge and cleanse myself of any animosity, any hatred, any ill feeling toward my brothers and sisters. And subhanAllah, this is something we all can relate to on a personal level. Right? Think about your own. Take a moment and reflect from your own family, your own upbringing, your whole experience. How many of us aren't speaking to our brothers and sisters for X amount of years because of dispute? Or how many times have we heard a story that this brother or this sister aren't talking? Or this brother and their parent aren't talking? Or maybe these two people in the community have not talked together. There was some public drama and now these brothers have completely cut off all communication. This is something we're all familiar with. We see this in our own communities, often happening again and again and again, that the Muslims are dividing ourselves up and swearing to one another, we will never reconcile with this person again, ever again. And subhanAllah, when you look at the example of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the scholars would call him Tabib al-Qulub, the doctor of the heart, because he taught us to clean our hearts and purify our hearts. And he teaches us to every single day, treat every day like a new life, like a new beginning. And Rasulullah ﷺ says in a very famous hadith that if you can wake up every single morning and you can go to sleep every single night and your heart has no ill feelings for another brother, for another believer, فَافْعَلْ, do it. Do it. Clean your heart. Wipe it away. Focus on your heart. And subhanAllah, some of us trivialize this aspect of tazkiyah, of purification. But subhanAllah, this is such a huge, important concept because in Islam, the community is built on the individual. We have a very firm understanding of this, that when the individual exceeds, when the individual excels, the community excels together. And when the rectification of the heart is the foundation of the believer, that when the heart is clean of the individual, the families come together. And when the families come together, the community is strong. But if we walk around as individuals with anger and harbor animosity to one another, if we are unable to resolve the disputes that we each have to one another, the community begins to fall apart. And subhanAllah, I want to talk about a story of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And this is the man who we often, we ascribe to him greatness, mashallah, a man of virtue and affluence, someone who had the perfect relations. And there is an incident in the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a very devastating incident that affected Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is the slander of Aisha radiallahu anha. And to summarize, that certain companions and the munafiqun had spread slander and spread rumors that Aisha radiallahu anha, the mother of our believers, our mother of the believers, had committed zina with another person. And they spread this slander, and they spread it, and they spread it. And the munafiqun had a field day with this. This was their chance to get something after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That how could his wife do such a horrible thing? And the Jews of the Yahud of Medina also had a field day with this. This was a very tense moment for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That not only were the munafiqun against him, but also the Jews who they were already had animosity towards the Muslims. This was their field day. And Abu Bakr, this is his daughter, right? You guys can imagine if a claim happened against your daughter, your sister, your mother, your aunt, how would you feel about this? It would be a very tense moment for you too. And on top of that, the news comes to Abu Bakr that his cousin, Mistah ibn Uthatha, his own blood, his own flesh and blood, had taken part in this slander. That his own cousin had been responsible for a portion of the slander being spread. That his own cousin was spreading the rumors themselves about his daughter. And Abu Bakr did the same thing that any of us would have done if it was our daughter, our sister, our mother, our aunt. He swore by Allah, Wallahi, I will never again give this man money. And Mistah used to be a very poor person. He had zero to no sustenance at all. And he only would survive based on what Abu Bakr would give him. Abu Bakr would give him a stipend every single month, like an auto pay on your bank balance. Every month he would give him some sort of cash, something to feed himself. And when the news came that it was Mistah was partly responsible for spreading the rumors, Abu Bakr said, Wallahi, from this day on, I will never again give him money. And justifiably so. Many of us will do the exact same thing again. Then the revelation comes down from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah An-Nur. And Allah says, do not let the people of virtue and affluence among you, referring to Abu Bakr, a man of virtue, a man of affluence, swear to suspend donations to the relatives, the needy, and the immigrants in the cause of Allah. Let them pardon and forgive. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ends the verse with something so profound. أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Would you not like that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives you? Would you not desire that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should forgive you on Yawm al-Qiyamah, and even in this dunya and the next? And Wallahu Ghafurur Rahim. And Allah is the forgiving and merciful. And when the revelation came to Abu Bakr, when the news came to him that this verse has been revealed, and the scholars almost have unanimous decision that this verse in Surah An-Nur is about Abu Bakr, a man of virtue and influence. Abu Bakr had tears in his eyes. He was weeping, crying, and crying, and crying. And he swore by Allah. He said, from this day on, I will never deprive Mistah from the monthly stipend. Right? He counteracted his previous wallahi with the new oath that I will never again let this poor person suffer because of this. And subhanAllah, this is such a great example because it's something that was personal against Abu Bakr. This is his daughter. Right? Not only that, this was about his best friend's wife, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That who could imagine slandering the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, hurting Rasulullah, and whoever hurts Rasulullah has hurt Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has angered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is such a dangerous situation to be in. Yet Abu Bakr subhanahu wa ta'ala, Abu Bakr anhu forgave the man, and he gave him his stipend back. And he changed his attitude and changed his entire perspective because of this. That you now want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should forgive you. And this is a lesson for us, that when we go through our daily lives, and we have our issues with one another, maybe it's our sibling, maybe it's your child, your parents, a friend in the community, a co-worker, someone in the public, forgive them. Let things go, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive you, just as how you would want to be forgiven. And subhanAllah, there is a hadith Qudsi that relates really, really similarly to this. And one of my teachers taught me this hadith Qudsi, and he taught us this idea that we should begin seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in one another. And it's not meant to be taken out of context. We're not saying literally you will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But rather, when you interact with others, when you act with others, when you speak to others, it should remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you should treat every interaction as much as you can as a way to get back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abu Hurairah narrates that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that Allah will say on Yawm al-Qiyamah, Yabna Adam, O child of Adam, I was sick, but you did not visit me. And the son of Adam, the Abdullah, will respond to Allah, Ya Rabbi, kayfa a'udhaka wa anta Rabbul Alameen. How can I visit you? How can I take care of you, Ya Allah, when you are anta Rabbul Alameen? You are Lord of the world. How can I visit you when you are sick? And Allah will respond back to the man, did you not know that one of my servants was sick and you did not visit him? And had you visited the man, taken care of the man while he was sick, you would have found me there. Then Allah will say, Yabna Adam, I needed food, but you did not feed me. And the slave will respond back to Allah, Ya Allah, Anta Rabbul Alameen, you are the Lord of the worlds. How could I possibly feed you? I'm the lowly slave, I have nothing. How could I feed you? You're Anta Rabbul Alameen, you are the Lord of all the worlds. And Allah will respond back, one of my servants was hungry in the community, and you did not feed that man. And if you had fed him and taken care of him, you would have found its reward with me. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will continue and say, Yabna Adam, I was thirsty, but you did not give me something to drink. And the man will respond in the same way, Anta Rabbul Alameen, you are the Lord of the worlds. You are al-Ghani, you are free of all needs. How could I possibly be giving you something to drink? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond in the same fashion. That someone in the community was thirsty. They needed something to drink to survive. But you did not give that person a drink. You did not take the effort to take care of that person. If you had given him a drink, you would have found me with that reward. And subhanAllah, this is the frame of mind that we need to adopt. That every action, every time we interact with a Muslim, we should take that as a frame of reference. That this is how I get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That when your brother wrongs you, something light, something small, or even something big, you take that as, I will forgive you for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a phrase we use often, for the sake of Allah, fi sabilillah, I do something for the sake of Allah. And often we would forget, there's sometimes things we don't like. Maybe I don't want to forgive this brother. Maybe I really don't have it to forgive this sister of mine, or this sister, this brother, this cousin. They did something so wrong to me. It's just really hard for me to forgive. And it is in that moment when you say, I'm going to forgive you for the sake of Allah. Not because I want to, but because doing this action will get me closer to Allah. This is the characteristic that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing. That when you set aside your personal differences, and you say, I'm going to do this fi sabilillah, for the sake of Allah, this is the characteristic that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does that elevates your status. That when the man went to bed every single night, telling himself, I forgive everything. I have relieved myself of all these burdens. Allah elevated him to Ashab al-Jannah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who forgive easily, and are forgiven easily, and admit us all to Jannah al-Firdaus. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I only have a few remaining minutes inshallah, but I want to cover a story from Surah Ali Imran. And this story is a series of verses that were revealed after the Battle of Uhud. And as you know, the Battle of Uhud was a very, very dangerous situation. was a very sad day, in fact, because a lot of scholars consider this the first loss of the Muslims. That the Battle of Badr, they were victorious, but when the Battle of Uhud came, and the Kafirs from Mecca came, and the Mushrikun of Kafirs came to attack Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Muslim Medina, they fought them off, they defended. So there was a victory in the sense that they protected Medina, but it was a loss because of how many of the shuhada there were. And the scholars say there were 85 martyrs on the side of the Muslims. 85 Muslims had been killed in the battle because of this battle. And it was a very tense moment for the Muslim community. It was a very sad moment because the Muslims had lost their brothers, their fathers, their sons, their cousins. It was a very dangerous moment. Even Rasulullah lost Musab ibn Umair, a very prominent companion. This is one of the messengers of the messenger of Rasulullah. And Rasulullah lost his own uncle, Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib. His own uncle died in this battle. So you can imagine after the Battle of Uhud, when the Prophet sees all the losses, he sees all the shuhada, it's already a sense of dread, a sense of disappointment. And when we look at the Battle of Uhud, we understand that when Rasulullah was setting up the battle, he commanded a battalion, a group of archers, to stay on this hill. And this was a strategically placed hill, and he told the companions, stay there, do not come down no matter what until the battle is finished, because this is strategic hold. We have to defend this position. And during the battle, when those companions on the hill saw that the army had seemingly finished, the battle had seemingly finished, and they saw Muslims going up to gather the spoils of war, the gold and the swords and the horses left behind, the archers on the hill mistakenly thought, they made a very innocent mistake, that perhaps the battle's over, let's go down. And they descended the hill, they went down. And Khalid bin Walid, who at the time was a kafir, who at the time was leading the disbelieving army, he was a very, a military strategic leader. He saw the battalion leaving the hill, and he struck. He took his army and he rode into the battle. And because of this incident, they attribute of the 85 martyrs, a lot of them towards this mistake. That had the archers stayed on their hills, that these Muslims would not have been martyred. So you can kind of imagine that now the Muslims are coming back into Medina. They realize their mistake, especially those on the archers on the hill. The sense of guilt on themselves, the remorse, that if we had stayed in our position, maybe the martyrs would not have happened. And the companions are all sad. They're devastated that we just lost so many people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down a series of verses in Surah Al-Imran about the shuhada, about kind of giving hope and optimism to the Muslims, reminding them that your shuhada are in Jannah, and the death of the kuffar, they're in Jahannam. And there's a particular verse that's almost directed towards Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. A lot of scholars have this opinion. This verse is about directed to Rasulullah sallallahu فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. It is out of Allah's mercy, ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that you have been lenient with them. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. Had you been cruel, فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ, have you been hard-hearted, literally tight on the heart, they would have certainly abandoned you. That the Muslims would have certainly abandoned you, deserted you in your position if you had been hard on them, if you had been cruel on them, if you had been strict on them in this moment of difficulty, this moment of stress, in this difficult situation. If you had left them, they would have certainly abandoned you. فَاعْفُ عَنْهُمْ. Pardon them. وَاسْتَغْفِرْ لَهُمْ. Seek forgiveness for them. وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. And consult them in your matters. فَإِذَا عَزَمْتَ فَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. And when you make a decision, put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُتَوَكِّلِينَ. Indeed, Allah loves those who put their trust in Him. And subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a framework. And I'll end with this. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a framework for when we get in a situation. And I want you to think about a situation where you have a dispute with your brother or your sister, your family, someone. And you're in a situation where you need this, a tense situation. You need to make a decision. The framework we have from this is that Allah is telling Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, pardon them, be easy on them, forgive them. And after you have forgiven them, do not exclude them. وَشَاوِرْهُمْ فِي الْأَمْرِ. Include them in your decision making. Because oftentimes when people make mistakes, innocent mistakes, right? We're not talking about zina, we're not talking about killing innocent people. We're talking about Muslims who make innocent mistakes, right? That forgive them and then do not exclude them. Do not hold it against them. Do not disparage them and go against them, antagonize them for that. Rather, include them in your decision making. And then when you have made a decision, put your faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is giving us a comprehensive framework that when you're in a situation that's difficult, forgive the other person, pardon them, then include them in your decision making, and once you've made your decision, rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the rest of it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who put our trust and faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to be among those who forgive others easily and are pardoned easily. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا تقبل الدعاء ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب ربنا إننا آمنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وسبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله